get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, which you already know because I'm unforgettable. Everybody, please, whatever platform you're listening on, please subscribe or follow. And if the platform allows for it, I think it's probably just Apple Podcasts, but maybe some other ones, rate and review. But only if you're going to leave a 5-star review and a good, or 5-star rating and a good review. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Also, please go like Sticky Situations page on Facebook. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram. Follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, you can send me a DM on Instagram at Sticky Situations Pod. You can send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com. Or my sponsor, Corona Crush. We post our episodes all the time on Corona Crush. You can join Corona Crush, find a post, and I have the application to be a guest right in there. I also have the application somewhere on the Instagram page. You can look, I'm pretty sure it's in my story highlights. So if you just want to find it there, don't want to DM me. Same goes for if you want to date me or any of my single guests on the podcast. There are applications for those too. You can find those on the Instagram, or you can send me a DM or an email, whatever you prefer. But I'd love to have you on the podcast. I would maybe like to date you. I don't know. I would love to set you up with one of my single guests. I want to play Shotgun, which is a matchmaker. So if you give me the opportunity, I'll try to hook you up. But anyway, let's get right into it. I think that's all the administrative business. Yeah, I think so. If I think of anything else, I'll tell you guys later. But anyway, let's get right into it. I have an extra special guest today. Everyone, please welcome to the podcast my friend Jessie. Jessie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rachel. How's it going?
It's going, you know?
Yeah.
Life is crazy.
It is. I think I live by that. Life is crazy.
Yeah, life just is crazy. Like, honestly, we're recording after Shabbat.
This is true.
And I saw a friend today, and I hadn't seen her in, like, probably a couple months. Probably at this point a couple months, like, away for Thanksgiving. I don't know when this is going to be released, but we're recording, like, beginning of December. And
also the fact that it's the end of the year.
I know.
Where did the year go?
I know. I'm like, 2022 is over? Like, what happened? Like, my roommate, we got our list of, like, people to give tips to, like, end of the year, like, holiday tips for our apartment building. And, like, my roommate brought it in and was, like, talking to us. She's like, oh, yeah, let's find a time to sit down and talk about it. I'm like, wow, It's been a year already since we did this last time. So, yeah, and like I saw a friend today and she was like, so what's going on with you? And I'm like, a lot.
A lot can happen in the span of a second even.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, all good stuff, I hope. All good stuff. Yeah.
Maybe life entertaining.
Yeah, my life is, I think, honestly, people ask me about my life. I feel like it's a weekly entertainment update. Like, what's she gonna say today? Like,
fair. That's fair. Anytime anyone asks me, I'm like, my mind goes blank, and I'm like, I sound like a boring human being.
Yeah. So I usually am just honest. Like, people come up to me and they're like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "Terrible." Only if I am terrible.
Right. Gotta keep it honest.
I just keep it honest. Or they're like, "Oh, so what's new?" And I'm like, A lot
since you've last seen me.
Yeah. So, but whatever. Maybe I'll tell you guys about it later. It's nothing like that crazy. It's like work stuff. Nothing that exciting. Nothing exciting for you guys. So it's fine. Exciting in my life, but like, I'm not engaged. I'm not married. Don't worry. You'll hear about that when that happens. No, this is all like work related. So, but anyway, Jessie.
Yes.
So before we get right into it, Jessie has, like, since I started the podcast, Jessie has been wanting to come on, and so I'm really excited to finally get to have her on.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear all of her stories. But before we get into that, Jessie, can you tell my listeners some basic information about you?
Yeah.
What I ask all my guests: your age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 27. I'm in New York.
Relationship
status. Thank you. My memory is like the size of a peanut.
It's fine.
very much single, and religious denomination, modern Orthodox. I say like middle of the road. Kinda.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I started asking my guests the question because I think it's important to know like what dating pool we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And
It's
a
good
lot
to
of
help differentiate.
yeah, and a lot of the frustrations because I think different religious levels experience different challenges when it comes to dating, and we also all kind of date a little bit differently.
True.
So
Very true.
I feel like people who fall into the modern Orthodox spectrum kind of like are all over the place with it. Like
Yeah.
some of us are like I know at least for myself personally, like sometimes I get dates through matchmakers.
Yep.
Sometimes I get dates through dating apps. Sometimes I meet people like
Just
in person.
Random. Yeah.
But
No, I think I'm the same way. I'm on one of the websites as well that has like the matchmakers. I think you've spoken about this previously, so definitely get through there, get through some of the apps.
Yeah.
I've had friends message me, be like, "Oh, are you interested?" I'd be like, "Sure, why not? Give it a try."
yeah, it's always like worth a try.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I just think it gives like a good perspective on everything.
yeah.
But anyway, Jessie,
Yeah.
should we let's get into
Let's
it?
get into it. I have my notes up and everything. My roommates always like to joke that like I have some of the more interesting dates that come up, just like what we do.
Yeah.
Some of them, I don't think I've had like a terrible date, but some of them obviously have not gone as well as some others. And like I said earlier, I am single, so nothing's panned out quite yet, but we'll get there. But yeah, let's dive into it. Do we want to like a story first? Do we want like some of the dates that I've been on? You're like, how did that even happen? Like, where did you, like, how'd you end up there? I'm good either way.
Let's like whatever you want to start with. I think
Okay.
it's like your own personal preferences.
Yeah, I guess let's go with, just to give a little context, when I say that some of my dates I've been on have been interesting. Now, this one, actually, the guy was great. I don't know if he listens, and if you do, you're a sweetheart. Obviously, things didn't work out, but he had taken me on some very interesting dates. As an example, and this happened around twice because we tried a couple different times. One of the dates we went on, and I think this was the second time around, was a dramatic reading of Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Which, when he suggested it, I was like, oh, in my head, I'm like, I don't know if like that's my speed, but like I'll give it a shot. Turned out to be like very interesting. Worked out well.
It's such like a fun, different thing to do.
Yeah. So that's just like kind of an example of like, I get myself into like random situations where I like go on random dates to random things. And obviously there are like the normal ones of like, dinner, drinks, whatever it might be. But that's kind of like the context behind some of my more interesting dates. But I can definitely get into a story of a couple different people of my less than ideal dates. One of them happened more recently. And, I think I got it through a matchmaker website. And we had a phone call to kind of discuss like when we would go on a date. I wasn't so enthralled by his profile, but it's fine. I was like, you know what, let me see, maybe it's better in person. Sometimes people over, the computer, it's a little bit hard to gauge. So we had a phone call, and on the phone I was like, oh, he seems like really great, sounding good. So we had a phone call, we were talking about what, like opportunity, like what to do. And, he's like, oh, we can go to a bar, we can go to ice cream, whatever it might be. And I actually said to him, I was like, let me just tell you now, I don't drink. So a bar might not be the best option. So like, just wanted to give you the heads up so that we're not like stuck there. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Neither do I. We'll figure something out.
Wait, so he wanted to go to drinks, but he doesn't drink either?
He like kind of just like, I feel like in our circles, it's like going to bars is the easiest thing for like a first date. Cause like you don't want to buy somebody dinner and have to be stuck there for so many hours if the date's not going well. And I think it's just like rattling off some ideas of what we could do.
I've talked about this on previous episodes.
Yeah.
Take her to ice cream.
I mean, the problem was it was cold already. So like,
Hot chocolate.
So he's like, oh, great. Like, no worries. We'll figure something out. And he's like, I'll let you know either the day before the date or the morning of. I'm not picky. If like, as long as they tell me a few hours in advance, that's fine.
Yeah, if I know like the general area,
Right.
I kind of like need to know if I need to like know what time to leave and
Right.
what to wear.
That's why I said like at least a few hours. Give me like some kind of heads up. But like, obviously if it's like hour before, then I'm like, that's a little bit.
Yeah, like, okay, I have to get on a train and it takes 40 minutes to get there. And
yeah.
No, I'm not going on a date where it takes 40 minutes to get anywhere. So
fair. Very fair. I definitely have. I don't think for first dates, though. I think it's been like maybe second, third dates.
In my old neighborhood, maybe.
Right, that's fair.
But in where I am now, I'm like, if I have to go 40 minutes, I'm not going.
Yeah, it can be a trek. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember if he got in touch with me the day before or the morning of. Either way, it was fine. He's like, oh, I know we said that we're not going to do drinks, but, like, do you mind if we just go to a bar? I feel like it's a good place to be able to just sit and talk. In my head, I was like, okay, it's a little bit weird, but whatever. I'm
get a soda.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought process. I was like, okay, sure, like, we can do that. In my head, I'm like, I'll get a soda or water, whatever it is. We go to a bar, and, there's kind of two different types of bars where, like, one of them, they seat you, they, like, take your drink order at the table, and then they, like, bring it to you. And then the other one is you have to go up to the bartender to actually get your drink.
Yeah.
So this was the latter. If we were getting drinks, we would have had to go up to the bartender to order. So we get there. We just straight up sit down. Like, nothing, from what I remember, I don't think he ever asked me throughout the date if I wanted a drink. Obviously, like, I told him I don't drink, but water's a drink, soda's a drink, whatever, fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just the whole date, and the whole date didn't last so long. It was like maybe an hour and 20. Which is fine. I feel like once for me, if I reach an hour mark and I'm like either really exhausted or just not feeling it, I feel like that's an okay time to like start with the idea of like maybe leaving soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were sitting there. Like I said, from what I remember, I don't think he asked if I wanted anything to drink, like water or soda. And wasn't a great day for me. Just work and other stuff was going on, but I did my best to be on my best behavior. And I think for the first 45 minutes, I was doing pretty good. And then I started getting tired. It was a weeknight. I was like, it's later. I think the date was like 8. Like we met up at like 8 or after. I was like, I'm getting tired. And somehow throughout the conversation, roommates came up, and I think I mentioned that I had been home for over a year because of COVID. So I was back with my parents. And he's like, oh, like people always ask me this question of like, oh, did you still have an apartment or did you get rid of it? And I was like, well, one of my roommates is not from the New York area, so we kept it. And he asked me, he's like, oh, who's your roommate? I told him. And he's like, oh, I know her brother. I was like, oh, funny, like, funny little thing. So kind of came up in conversation a little bit. We spoke about it, moved on. And then around like the hour and 5-minute mark, he went to the bathroom. He comes back. And by then I was like, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. So like I was probably doing a little less well than I should have been for a date. And at one point, like, I yawned, and I said to him, I was like, oh, sorry, like, it kind of hit me, I'm really tired. And he was, like, not so nice about, like, when he asked, he's like, so you, like, want to leave? And I was like, it's not a nice way to put it, but yes, I would. I didn't say that straight out to him, but I was, like, in my head, I was like, that's not very nice to put it. Yeah. Also, to bear in mind, it was raining that night, and I lived farther from the bar than he did. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, maybe, like, let's start going, because I am exhausted, I have work tomorrow. He's like, oh, do you want me to walk you back? I was like, no, like, there's really no reason for us to both get soaked. Like, I live farther from the bar. It's really not that big of a deal. He's like, oh, okay, if you're sure. And I was like, yeah, no worries. So, like, we get to the cross street that he would turn to go back to his apartment.
So you guys, like, lived in the same neighborhood?
Lived in the same neighborhood, yeah. Not too far from each other. I
could have walked you home.
He could have walked me home, but, like, sometimes I just need a breather after a date.
Oh, yeah. No, I've definitely had dates where I don't want him to walk me home. Usually I'll be like, if you want to. And then I expect him to, like, do it.
Yeah. I also think it depends on how much you like the person.
Yeah. Also what time it is. And, like...
Right. I mean, I think you've mentioned this. Like, I have mace on me. Yeah. And, like, not because I expect to use it on the date. Just, like, if I am walking back by myself or, like... If I have to take a subway, obviously not 40 minutes, but, like, 20 minutes down, like, 20 minutes from where I am. I just like to have it just, New York is a little bit crazy at times.
Yeah.
But it was late. I was just, like, not in the mood to, like, entertain a conversation anymore. So I was like, and it was raining. I was like, there's really no reason for you to have to walk me back to my apartment just to go back to your apartment to get even, like, more whatever. So we get to the cross street. We part ways. I thank him for his night. And I kind of said, like, oh, have a good night really quickly. So he probably gathered from that I wasn't interested, but it's fine. I texted him the next morning a really nice message. My message, if I'm ending it with a guy, is pretty standard of like, thank you so much. Like I've been thinking it over, but no, obviously in nicer terms. Mm-hmm. And I texted him the next morning being like, thank you so much for last night. It was really nice to meet you. I don't really see this moving forward, but like, best of luck with everything. He texted me back, similar, like, oh, thanks so much. Like, best of luck to you too. My roommate comes home that night and was like, Jessie, he had sent her brother a message about me and basically was like, she was like really not friendly. She wasn't into the date. Like, basically, like, not like bad mouthing me, but pretty much, I guess, bad mouthing me.
The heck?
And her brother sent her a voice note about it. And I was like, okay, either he's like trying to do this on purpose.
But also,
like,
that's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my brother and I are close in age.
Right.
Like, any of my former roommates, like, if they went out with my brother's friend, my brother does not want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care. He's be like, Rachel, one of your friends went out with my friends, and now he's complaining about it. Like,
yeah.
But
it
like,
was, like, very strange.
That's so weird.
And I said to my roommate, I was like, I don't understand because, like, I was, like, yeah, I may not have been in the best mood before going to the date, but I did my best for at least the first more than half of the date to, like, not get that in the way of, like, trying to, like, have a decent date. But yeah, like, her brother straight up, like, sent her a voice note and, like, was basically said, like, oh, yeah, she, like, really wasn't into it. She, like, wasn't, like, doing a good job at, like, trying to be interested or whatever. And I'm like, I sent him a very nice message the next morning. Like, it wasn't worth it to, like, be like, oh, can you ask your brother to be like, wait a minute, like, what's going on? But that's like, one of my more, like, are you kidding me stories? Like, that's just no.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Yeah. So that's probably, like, the more, like, ones that stick out in my head. I'm like, it's a good thing I only gave him one date.
Yeah. Do you have to see him around?
I don't think I had ever seen him before or since the date, which is good because we live in the same neighborhood because the bar wasn't far from either of our apartments that we went to. But yeah, I don't know if he's more like keeps to himself type of situation. I'm also like, I like feel like I'm so out of it sometimes. I just don't like, I may be like spacing out and not see people. But yeah, no, luckily I haven't seen him since. I don't think I'd ever seen him before the date. So who knows what he's up to in life. I do wish him all the best because like clearly there's stuff going on in his end that like he needs to like work through. And I'm not the type to be like, yeah, screw like poo poo to you for like making things like a not so good date. But yeah, that's like kind of the big one that sticks out of my head from recently. I'm like, ooh, that's a hard one.
Hopefully you don't run into him.
That's the hope. That's the hope. And I think it's kind of a little bit easier now because it's like wintertime, so it's cold out. So like it's not like the park scene.
That's true.
Of like people gather. Like the only time would be shul, like to shul, synagogue, of like potentially running into these people.
Yeah, or like a random meal.
Right.
Or
but I don't think we've had any like mutual like overlaps. The only ones might be like the mix and match.
Oh yeah, you get assigned. In our neighborhood, a lot of different organizations do like these mix and match meals.
Yeah.
Which is funny because literally last week I ended up in a mix and match meal at Jessie's apartment.
Yep. My roommates and I decided to host, and Rachel was one of the guests, which was super great.
And it was really funny because months and months ago, Jessie's roommate ended up in a mix and match at my apartment.
It's hilarious. I don't think she ever told me that.
Yeah. No, it was funny when I like got her name on my
list.
When I got assigned to be like at your apartment. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's so funny. It's like full circle because she came to a mix and match in my apartment. But yeah, so basically like these organizations you can sign up to host or sign up to be a guest, and they'll like just put you random places. So
yeah,
and it's fun. You get
some
to
of
meet
them are
different
good.
people.
Some of them are like you get a good kick and a good story out of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, not related to, well, I actually did mention this kind of earlier in the story about this date in particular, that the date lasted maybe an hour and 20 minutes, which kind of brings me to not really a story, but like kind of a weird / like this is just typical of my dating life. My shortest in-person date was 30 minutes, which is like pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people will try to like extend it a little bit if possible.
Yeah.
This was like earlier in COVID. This was like probably summer 2020. So like COVID was like very beginning stages. And I mentioned before I was home for a while with COVID. So like I tried my best to like not really go on too many dates, at least definitely not indoors, just because like I was going home to my parents. I didn't want to bring anything home to them. So, like, during the summer, it was easier because I could meet people outside. And this guy was, like, nice enough to come to where my hometown is, because he didn't live too far from there. And we walked around, like, this small park that was, near my house. And, like, we kind of just did a bunch of laps. And, like, during the laps, you have to pass the parking lot to where the cars are. And we were coming up on the parking lot, and it was, like I said, it was around the half-hour mark. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to go now. Have, like, a good day. And I was like, it's been half an hour. Like, not that the date was, like, amazing. It wasn't, like, a particularly amazing date. I didn't think it was, like, that bad. But I was like, oh, okay, bye. I was like, I guess it's over. And he texted me later. He's like, look, I don't see it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're allowed to your opinion. I was just like, even if, like, I didn't think it was that bad that I'm like, a half hour cuts it. But whatever works.
Yeah, honestly, I think my shortest dates are still, like, around the 45-minute hour mark.
Yeah. Like I said, I try to do an hour, especially if it's different over the phone versus, like, in person.
Oh, yeah, over the phone, my record is getting off in, like, 2.5 minutes.
Which I love. You need to teach me your ways, because I sometimes have issues with that, of, like, not being able to get off the phone. And, like, it also kind of depends. Sometimes I'll preface it of, like, oh, just a heads up, my phone's about to die, so, like, I need to go. Or, like, it's late at night, I'd be like, oh, I have to wake up early in the morning, so I have to go in a couple minutes. But I have a little bit of a harder time, like, it's easier definitely on the phone to be like, I have to go, bye, than in person.
Oh, yeah. In person, it's hard sometimes. It's like, a lot of times I just, like, get tired. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go home.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not, I don't know. I also feel bad, like, if they come to me.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, they came all this way. But, like, I don't know, you're dating the bar that was near both your apartments.
Yeah.
Definitely could have, like, I don't think you owe him that much to stay that long.
Right. Like I said, I'm like, we were sitting there, the entire hour and 15, 20-minute date, no drinks were had. Like,
you could have been like, oh, do you want, like, a soda or a water or something, a mocktail?
Something.
Like, you can get a mocktail these days.
Like, I genuinely don't remember him, like, asking at all about, like, if I was thirsty.
Yeah.
It's a very easy question.
And you're sitting and talking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like that. Not that I need, like, to have something on a date, but...
No, it's true. And I guess it also depends on, like, what kind of date it is. If you're going to a bar or to get ice cream or to... I mean, I try not to do food on the first date, like, actual food on the first date.
Yeah, I don't like dinner on a first date.
Because I'm just, like, a complete mess when I eat.
I'm just a picky eater, and also I don't want to be trapped at...
No, that's true.
At a restaurant.
Yeah.
I've already done it, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I'm like... I want to know that I want to spend at least 2 hours with you before I commit to having a meal.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's really it. And nothing. So yeah, that's probably like I don't want to say worst date, but my most like, are you kidding me date?
Yeah.
My most, are you kidding me date? That is for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, with every weird date comes good dates. Sometimes.
We hope.
And I really think that we'll all get there, whether we struggle with that thought process or not, because I definitely do.
Yeah. Same. You guys have heard me talk, so.
Yeah, I think I've been on some, like the date I mentioned earlier with the dramatic reading of Edgar Allan Poe. Like, I've been on fun dates, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think with that same guy, we did virtual reality at one point, which was fun.
Oh, wow.
He was, like, very creative, and...
I like that. I like when it...
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I don't ask for that much.
Right.
Well, I do ask for a lot. But, like, I feel like I'm not that picky. Like, I'm not judging a guy based off of the dates he chooses. But I definitely notice when he puts thought into it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think the thing that frustrates me most is when the guy just, like, doesn't make up their mind. There have definitely been a couple times where the guy's like, oh, like, I'm good with whatever. What do you want to do? I'm like... I know I'm not creative, so one of us here needs to be creative and come up with something fun.
Even if you tell me we're going out to ice cream or going out to drinks, like, that's fine. Just make a plan.
I'm low-key. I don't need something, like, crazy or extravagant. Ice cream or like hot chocolate. I'm good with that. Yeah.
It was really funny. So we're recording on a Saturday night, so my Shabbat dinner last night, it was a small meal. There were 7 of us, but there were only 2 guys and 5 girls. And of course the podcast came up. I was talking about it, and one of the guys at the meal was like asking us questions, and he, like, the girls, and he's like, okay, what's the worst place to take a girl on a date? Like, what's the worst place you've been to on a date? And I was like,
I guess
honestly,
it depends on what number date it is also.
yeah. I was like, I think he was talking more like first date type of thing.
Movie?
Like, he was like,
That's my
best
first
things. So mine is like not having anywhere to go.
That too. I think
I would-
movies are second under like not having anything to do.
Yeah, I think a movie date is not ideal until like later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on a few movie dates and like it's fine, but like you can't talk to the person so you can't get to know them.
Yeah, I think I've only been on one movie date in theaters.
I'm like a huge movie
That-
goer, so like for me I love that, but at the same time
Oh.
I know that's not a good thing for dating. Like
Yeah.
early stages of dates.
When I went, it was a third date.
Okay.
But it was still like, we were still getting to know each other. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like a good, and I was like, oh.
Was there a fourth date for that one or like
No, that was like very, very early on in my dating career.
Okay.
And then he like went out of town, and then I didn't hear from him for like 3 weeks. And then when he texted me, I'm like,
You're
screw
like, I'm
that.
not interested anymore.
Screw that. I'm like, bye.
Yeah.
I think I just like didn't answer him. Like, that's not right. Like, I should have.
Right.
But, like,
I get it.
I was 23.
Right. I feel like I probably did that also, like early dating stages of like I would just like not end up answering them, which wasn't great, but like I was a little pipsqueak. What did I know?
I only didn't answer him because I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, you guys know, I've talked about it before. If I don't hear from a guy in 48 hours, he's dead to me.
I like that rule.
Unless like he like has like a real reason.
Yeah.
Like if a guy
Did
like
he give you a reason for not talking to you for 3 weeks?
no, but again, this was like early on. I didn't
Right.
answer him. I'm sure I could go back. I wonder if I still have the text. I probably do because my phone saves everything. But unless a guy comes to me like later and like if
As,
it's
like,
been
a-
a few days and whatever, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry.
Right.
I had this crazy situation that happened. Like someone died, or I was
Legitimate.
in the hospital,
All legitimate.
or I lost my phone." That actually did happen to me once.
Really?
I had a situationship with a guy, and yeah, it was also yeah.
Those are never great.
It was a situationship. 'Cause it was long distance. We were basically just pen pals.
Okay.
We met and then we like were long distance, but he didn't live that far. It was like maybe 3 hours, and he made like no effort into it. He made no like we didn't have phone calls.
Right.
We didn't have video calls. And like finally I was one who took the initiative to be like, "Hey, like come visit me."
Right.
Um
And that's never like a nice feeling to be like
yeah.
having to tell them what to do.
Yeah, but so it was a situationship. We were basically pen pals. There's nothing else to describe it. We were pen
Right.
pals. We would like, and it's not like we were like texting nonstop every day.
Yeah.
He would send me like a paragraph every like 2 or 3 days.
To like pretty much catch you up on what he
Yeah,
missed the
like
past 3 days of not
we would
talking.
hit like a bunch of topics of conversation.
Right.
And like then I would type out my letter to him as well. At that point we should have just done emails, like
Right.
whatever. So
I feel like texts, the whole point of them are like you respond them like very quickly. Emails can take a couple days.
yeah, but anyway, I didn't hear from. So I sent a text, and then I didn't hear from him probably for like a week ish, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess he's done talking to me. Whatever. It was like a weird time in my life. I was in busy season. Like this is
Right.
when I was like still an auditor. So I was in busy season. So I'm like, I don't have that much time anyways. Like that's why also like I would have like actively dated other people during this.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't was because I was in busy season
Right.
and I didn't have time.
That's fair.
So I was like, okay, I'm okay with this like pen pal thing because like I also just don't have time right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fine. But I'm like, okay, so I didn't hear from him for a week, and I'm like, okay, I guess he's done. That's fine. Whatever.
Right. Like
It's fine.
not like so invested that I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then one day I got a text from him, and he's like, so, funny story.
Oh boy.
He's like, I was responding to your text, and we were talking through WhatsApp.
So you can see when they read, unless they have their read receipts off, you can see when they have seen
Yeah.
their messages.
Yeah, I mean, unless he doesn't open it. I honestly...
So that's my point. Like, so if
Yeah.
you've already been talking to him for a while and you see that, like, the check marks turn blue, like,
yeah,
you'll know.
I think
So,
he
like,
left me on red, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's whatever. Like,
Yeah.
he read the message, he didn't respond. That's that.
Yeah.
So after like a week or so after not hearing from him, maybe it was like longer than that, I don't fully remember, he sends me a message. He sends me a regular text message.
Oh.
And I was like,
Changing it up. Okay.
okay, a regular text message. and he was like, okay, so funny story.
I always love the start of that funny story.
I was in the middle of responding to your message, and WhatsApp basically, like, killed my phone.
What?
Like, his phone broke. He's like,
What?
WhatsApp, like, crashed my whole phone, and
It's not like it's WhatsApp is a very widely used.
I know. I don't know why. I don't know why he was like, I don't know. I honestly don't know what I believe him, because I just feel like it's such a weird thing to make up that, like, he wouldn't have made it up. He was like, yeah, I was in the middle of responding to your message and WhatsApp just crashed my whole phone. And then my phone wouldn't turn back on. It wouldn't start. And I had to get a new phone and all of this. And, like, now I finally got a new phone.
Okay.
And I'm like,
sure.
okay. I do believe him that it did take that long, because honestly, last time I broke my phone, my parents had to get me the phone, and, like, of course my dad doesn't believe in overnight shipping to get me a phone. I mean, this was years ago.
Right.
This was in, like, 2016.
Okay,
I
fair.
think. I broke my phone. Luckily, I broke it after he had ordered new phones.
There you go. Perfect timing.
But the new phones were coming to Columbus.
Right. And then you had to, like, wait for it to get to home.
Wait for it to get to Columbus, and then, of course, and they were coming, like, in a few days.
Right.
And of course, though, like, when he got it, he couldn't just, like, overnight it like a normal parent would do. He's like, oh no, so and so's driving to New York later
like
this
100
week.
years.
Later this week, and he works in Midtown also, and, like, you can coordinate to pick him up. I'm like, okay, Dad, so you're gonna have me travel across Midtown, like,
without a phone.
I was working in Midtown at the time, to meet a stranger who I don't know without a phone. Somehow it worked, but I did go, like, a week and a half without a phone.
Yeah. I feel like also, like, maybe because we grew up, like, by the time we were growing up, like, technology wasn't around for the first few years of our lives, but then, like, it really hit full force. Like, in my head, I'm not attached to my phone by any means, but, like, if I go anywhere, I, like, double and triple check I have my phone just in case of an emergency.
Yeah, like, honestly, it was funny because I was talking to someone. When I first started driving, I didn't have a smartphone until after I graduated high school.
I got a smartphone my freshman year of college, so I feel.
Yeah, so I didn't have a smartphone until I went to Israel for a year to study, so that was the first time I ever had a smartphone. So
I was
in
sent
high school,
to Israel for the year without a smartphone.
Okay.
I don't know how I managed it. My parents, like, to be fair, like, I have a few siblings, so, like, for them to pay for the smartphones for all of us is expensive.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I'm paying for my smartphone now pretty much. Like, I'll send my dad the checks for however much. But, like, I genuinely, like, I mean, it was almost a decade ago, I guess now, so that I was in Israel. But, like, everyone else, I was the only person in the school with a flip phone. The only person.
So I did have a smartphone. My dad got, like, some weird of course, it wasn't, like, the brand that everyone uses. That's American. My dad had to get the Israeli one, and I was on the phone with the phone company every single day. My phone didn't work.
Yep.
I had issues, but yeah, so I, like, drove places without a smartphone. Like, now I could not, like, I don't drive that often, and I have no idea where I'm going whenever I do drive places.
Yeah.
And I need my, like, GPS.
Right.
And, like, I think we had, like, a GPS, like a physical GPS.
Yeah.
But, like, I never had it in my car.
Right.
So I, like, would print out instructions to go places.
That's, like, very, like, 2012 vibes.
I know. I mean, I started driving in 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got my driver's license in 2010, like, end of 2010. So
maybe I'm just, like, skewed because I also really, like I said, I didn't get a smartphone until I was a freshman in college. So, like, also I'm, like, when I was driving, like, I wouldn't necessarily drive places that, like, I didn't know how to get to. So, like, anywhere I was driving, I already knew how to get there.
Yeah, same. But, so, I don't know. I guess for some reason, I did believe him that he didn't have a phone for, like, a week and a half.
It happens.
But
it's, like, such a random excuse.
Nowadays, but then I was like, LOL, I broke his phone. And then I kind of loved that because I'm me. But yeah, so if a guy doesn't text me, if I don't hear from a guy within 48 hours, unless it's, like, a 2-day holiday, like,
right. Yeah.
Fine. Or if he tells me, like, oh yeah, I'm
Just a
leaving
heads
the
up.
country.
Yeah.
Or, like, I'm going to be unavailable for the next couple days. I like the heads up, but no, he's dead to me. If not.
Yeah, that's honestly probably better. And I haven't had this situation, at least in the past year and a half, but, like, I remember there was a couple people I'd matched with on this matchmaking site, and we had spoken, didn't hear from them for like a couple weeks. And like, I would wait at least a week just to give them a week. And then the second I hit the week mark, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I closed it out, closed out the match. There was one person actually, we had never met in person because he did not live in the New York area. He, I think, lived in like Massachusetts or something. But we had matched on the site and like had a couple phone calls. We're getting along, I think, relatively okay. And at one point I straight up called him out on like his BS. I was like, what's going on? Because like it had been a few days since I heard from him, and I was like, okay, what's the deal? He was like, oh, I'm just getting back from my sibling. Do you want to have a phone call? And I was like, I just want to know, like, what your problem is. Because, like, I thought we were getting along okay. And he just, like, stopped, like, responding, didn't text me. And he, like, basically pulled out this whole answer. And I think later on I realized he was kind of full of it. And he was like, oh, well, I'm, like, new to the website. And, like, it's just, like, very overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. And then he sent me like 3 or 4 like very long paragraphs about like his day, what he's been up to. And I said to him, I was like, look, I get it. The website can be very overwhelming. Like I've been on it for a little while also, so I get it. But like, that's not real. Like, I don't know if I straight up said it this part, but like, that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
Just,
and
like
also
straight up say it. Like if you're having a hard time, that's fine. I'm not one to judge. Just say it.
it's also sometimes just easy enough to tell someone like, hey, honestly, I did this. Like, I've been going through a lot. Like, just the last, like, few weeks.
Right.
I've had, like, a whole thing with work, and, like, I was home for Thanksgiving, and I've just had a lot going on.
Which is fair.
And, like, just in my life, which is fine. Like, I came back. I hadn't seen any of my friends. Before I left for Thanksgiving, I was going through, like, a lot of, like, personal stuff, and, like, I was just, like, having a hard time, and I was just, like, absent from my life.
Right.
And so I went home for Thanksgiving. I took a break from everything. And then I came back and like there's tons of craziness going on with like work stuff. And then I had also been absent from like my friends and everything. And I was like starting to get back into that. And I'm like, I'm just so overwhelmed. And like I had been talking to a couple of guys. And also like sometimes if you're talking to more than one guy at a time and like things progress with one, like it's not that you don't want to, like, you want to see where something goes.
Yeah.
So, like, I had that as well, plus everything going on in my life. And I was talking to a couple other guys who, like, seemed, like, really nice. They might be listening to this. I don't know when I'm releasing this.
Yeah,
but, like,
my thought process is the same. Like, if they listen, okay.
Like, they honestly might be listening. And, like, if you're listening, that's fine. Like, I'm not lying to you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I had a lot going on in my life. I still have a lot going on in my life. Like, I'm like, even thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I don't even know when to reach out. Like, because, like, I have a week, basically I switched jobs. So I had my last week at my current job, my former job. Now former job. I have a week, I'm calling it my fun employment week, where I'm just, like, focusing on me.
Yes.
And, like, a lot of that, I, like, I don't want to plan dates. I don't want to plan phone calls. I don't want to do anything.
Just need, like, a week
I want to, like, have fun for myself.
Yeah.
And then the week after I start my new job, and it's Hanukkah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm, like...
Also crazy.
I'm, like, I already have plans every single night of the week for Hanukkah, and, like, multiple options.
Right.
Plus, it's my first week working at my new job, and I'm, like... So, anyway, I was very overwhelmed. I came back from Thanksgiving, and I was so overwhelmed with just everything. Work stuff, friend stuff was not, like, dramatic. It was just, like, yeah, I miss my friends. Like, I've been, like, totally absent from my life just because I had a lot going on. And then I was away for 2 weeks. Like, I want to spend time with my friends. I want to do things with them. I want to see them. I don't want to book my whole night with, like, random guys that I'm talking to. I want to see my friends. So, like, I sent a message, and I was just like, hey, I'm just, like, very, very overwhelmed with everything right now. I have a lot going on. Is it okay if I reach out when things calm down? And honestly, I think, and, like, very cool with it.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, like, I don't mind if a guy would send that to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Instead of just, like, keeping me guessing and only answering every couple of days, like...
Yeah. Like, you do what you need to do, but don't make me be like, what's the deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unnecessary, like, overthinking.
Yeah, don't make me question it. Like, I am still interested enough to, like, continue talking to you. I just don't have the capacity at this moment.
Yeah. And it's valid.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I think it's a good lesson for guys also.
Yeah.
Because I've had it too, where guys just, like, ghost me. And then we'll, like, come back, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. I've had a couple people and where I like quickly figured out that they weren't interested, but then they never said anything about not being interested. And like, I don't know, maybe it's a mutual ghosting. There's one instance that I'm thinking of. I think it was like back in March or whatever. I went on 2 dates with this guy. The first date went like really well, but him and I were not on the same religious level by any means.
Yeah.
He was like way less religious, but like I was willing to consider it because like, you know, he seemed really sweet. And went on a second date with him to get food, and I don't know how my brain kind of registered this, and like this was the second person to have done it to me, where like I kind of noticed that they like weren't really eating their food, and in my head I was like, okay, they're not interested, and like I don't know how in my brain it switched.
That's an interesting like
connection. I don't know how I picked up on it. He was the second person to have done that to me. Where like the first guy also, I like noticed like he kind of had like slowed down eating, wasn't really eating his food anymore. I was like, okay, I have a feeling he's not interested, which is fine. Like,
it's so weird.
Yeah, and I think both of them never got back in touch with me.
That's like so weird, but also like,
and I didn't bother reaching out.
Why would they stop eating their food? If anything, I would like just eat and not talk.
Right? Yeah, I don't know how. It was so weird. And both of them, like one of them was through the matchmaking site. He just closed out the match, didn't say anything. The second one was
That's kind of rude.
Yeah. And he wasn't the first person on the matchmaking site to do that. And the other one was through one of the apps. And I also figured out pretty quickly, like, once the second date ended. The first date, he was, like, he came to, like, closer to my neighborhood because we didn't live in the same neighborhood in New York. And he, like, pretty quickly, like, after the date, within, like, 15 minutes, like, had texted me after the first date that, like, he had a really nice time. We spoke, like, again the next morning, talked about another date. Then the second date happened, the food thing I noticed, like, kind of registered. I was like, I think he's not interested. Never heard from him again after the date. And, like, by the next morning even, I was like, okay, I know I'm not, like, he's not interested. Like, I'm just curious if he'll text me even to be like, sorry, no. Never heard from him again. But I also never reached out because I was like, okay, I kind of figuring he's not interested, but, like, kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird connection also. Now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think I've only had one guy who we went out to dinner on a second date, and then I never heard from him ever again. But this was a long time ago. And he also wasn't so religious. I made him go, like, obviously I made him go to a kosher restaurant.
Right, the same thing with me. He's like, oh, like, let me know if there's somewhere you want to go. Otherwise,
I had to choose the restaurant.
Otherwise, like, I can make a reservation somewhere. And I was a little bit worried because, like I said, he, like, similar to what you're saying, like, he wasn't, like, the same religious level. In my head, I was like, I want to make sure we get something that, like, I can eat.
Yeah.
Which is why I picked the place. It was maybe, like, not the best place, but I wanted to give him a place that was, like, kind of in the middle of both of where we lived, so that he wasn't coming to visit, like, all the way to where I am, and I wasn't going all the way to where he is. And it might not have been, like, the cheapest option, which is partially my fault, and I will admit to that. But, yeah, didn't hear anything from him afterwards.
So weird.
Yeah.
It's like a weird connection.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch now. If a guy stops eating on the second date, he's not interested.
Yeah.
But okay, so wait, let's take a quick break just to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more of Jessie's stories.
Sounds good.
Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk, to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself, or have a friend post you, and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri-state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in-store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929-376-9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world.
Okay, we're back.
Hello.
So, Jessie, do you want to continue with your going through your
Yeah. So there's a couple
stories?
of other ones that kind of come to mind. One of them, and like, wasn't bad. It was just like, you didn't think this through. This was the first person I'd ever gone out with from a dating app. So I think it was like the tail end of college, probably. It was a third date. We went to a movie, and he lived in the 5 towns, I think. So like he had to travel a bit to get to me, but he was fine
which is in Long Island.
Long Island, New York. And I am originally not from New York. I'm from New Jersey. So he drove out to me and we went to a movie. And when he was driving me back off at home, he noticed that he had like pretty much no gas in his car.
Oh.
And I already knew that I was like not going to move forward with him. Like, sweet kid, but like just not for me. And it was like 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night. Like, what gas stations are open on a Saturday night, like 11 o'clock? Very few.
Aren't most gas stations open?
Honestly, for some reason, it seemed like everyone I tried to take him to was closed.
Ooh.
But like
why do gas stations close? I thought gas stations have to be open.
Maybe on the highway they're open, but like in like the town I'm from, like they weren't. Like
That's
a bunch of them are closed
weird.
by like
That's like really weird. I mean, this isn't just like a side. Like, I was dating a guy once who lived in Long Island, and we were at his apartment, and he was taking me home, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we stopped and got gas at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right. So I'm curious. It maybe depends on the place. I distinctly remember that like most places I tried to take him to in my hometown were like closed on like
That's
11
crazy.
o'clock or 11:30 on a Saturday night. We finally did find one, and he only put like $8 like on it. I'm like, what? Why are you giving $8 to fill your tank when you're very close to empty?
Isn't gas like $8 a gallon now?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, granted, this was
I don't drive, so
like 4 years ago or almost 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So like gas was at a different point in our lives then. But he literally put like maybe like $8 to $10 in the tank, and I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, I live in New Jersey. You have to go back to the 5 towns, and you're putting like $10 of gas in your car. That just doesn't seem like a lot to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was just like one thing that kind of stuck out that I was like, that's a little bit silly to me, but like, sure. We did not, progress any further past that date, and it wasn't because of the gas situation. I just wasn't feeling it, which is fine, which is always allowed. But like, that's like, I guess it's because it was the first person I've ever dated, like from the apps, because anyone else I had dated previously, like we had known each other in person first. So that was one of the other ones that kind of...
Did he make it home?
I think so, because I guess he wasn't stranded, because like we'd spoken the next day, and he seemed to have made it back.
Depending on how much gas is, like $8 could get you. If this was a couple years ago, $8 could get you a few gallons.
Right. So like maybe
that can get you home.
But like in my head, I'm just like, why don't you fill it up now? It's also probably cheaper in New Jersey than New York, but that was a whole other story that we didn't get into.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah. So that was just like one little fun tidbit. Another story that comes to mind is I was supposed to go on a date. This one's also, I think, like within, 2022. And the morning of, I texted him. I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not feeling well. Do you mind if we reschedule? And he was like, not so nice about me asking to reschedule. He's like, well, I rearranged my whole schedule for this, blah, blah, blah. Like, apparently he was in med school.
This is the beginning of 2022?
This was when the weather was already, like, starting to get nicer out.
I
could be making that up. I think it was maybe,
so I was going to say, beginning of 2022 was, like, straight up Omicron surge.
Yeah. No, it wasn't then. It was probably, like, March or, like, between March and, like,
but still, you're not
May.
feeling good. You can't help it if you wake up not feeling good.
And I purposely texted him earlier in the morning, like, 9 o'clock, 9:30, and I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, do you mind if we reschedule? I'm not feeling great. And he, I think, was in med school, and, like, he had, like, a job on the side to, like, you know, whatever, like, for med school, whatever it was. And he had suggested that day for the date, and he's like, well, I rearranged my whole schedule. I'm like, it's kind of frustrating, blah, blah. In my head, I'm like, you never told me you rearranged your entire schedule for this.
Also, I'm sick.
Also, like, what if I told you I had COVID? Then what? Like, do you want to see me while I have COVID? I don't think so. Like, luckily I didn't have COVID. Luckily it wasn't COVID at the time. I think it was just like a stomach bug or something, whatever it was. But I'm like, a person's allowed to be sick, and it's not like I'm texting you a half an hour or an hour before the date. I literally texted you that morning, and the date was supposed to be, like, what, 7 o'clock that night?
Yeah.
We rescheduled for a different day, which, like, I'm kind of surprised that, like, A, he was still interested after that whole thing, but also that I was willing to go out with him.
Yeah.
We went on a date. Everything was totally fine. Like, he was, like, actually relatively nice, whatever. He might not, I guess he just, like, personality-wise, maybe he wasn't interested, but, like, he was going back to I guess he was, like, not at, like, it must have been something that he wasn't at school for the semester. Like, he was doing it from home or whatever it was, but, like, he was going back to medical school, and, like, I think we had said something about a second date, which I actually have, like, a side comment about being asked on a date while on the date. Don't like it. But I think something about a second date had come up, and then he came back to me, he's like, actually, I'm going back to medical school, like, it's not going to work. Which, like, it's fine, I didn't care. But I was also, like, kind of weird that you asked about a second date, and they were like, actually, never mind.
Yeah, that's weird.
But speaking of, I am the type of person that even if the date goes well, I do not like being asked to go on another date while I'm on the date with the person. Mm-hmm. Just because I like time to process. I like time to, like, I feel like also, like, some people could be, like, really good at pretending that they're enjoying their time. I'm sometimes
good at it.
Yeah, sometimes I'm good at it, other times I'm not. But, like, if I'm, you know, acting in that situation, like, I don't want to be put on the spot because I have a hard time saying no and I'll feel bad.
You've never reneged?
I try to avoid it if I can. I might have done it, like, once or twice, but, like, like, if I say yes, then I'll just go.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
I've reneged.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're put on the spot, and I'm like, okay. Or sometimes I'll be like, let's be in touch.
Right.
It depends It depends where we are in the date. If he's, like, dropping me back at my apartment, then he's like, so would you, like, want to do this again? It's easier to be like, oh, like, let's be in touch, and then run inside. Whereas, like, if you're sitting on a date and, like, you have, like, still time left together, and he's like, well, I'd really like to see you again.
No, I've had multiple people, like, on the dates be like, so, do you want to go on, do you want to go on a date number 2? Do you want to go on a date number 3? And in my head, I'm like, can you, like, I want to shake them and be like, don't ask on the date, because for all you know, they're just pretending to have a good time, and they're, like, acting really well about it.
Yeah.
And some people have an easier time in person saying no. I am not one of those people.
I think it's okay if you're going to be like, I had a really nice time.
Right.
And then, I don't know, you could leave it at that. Like, I had a really nice time. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
The excuses I have tended to use if I try to get out of it is be like, let me check my work schedule.
Yeah.
And then
Sometimes
I get back.
do that too.
Yeah, and then I'll get back to them and be like, look, I've been thinking it over. Like, thank you, but no. But, like, I sometimes have a hard time getting to that point because I feel like my brain goes on, like, pause. And I'm like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah, it's like freak out mode.
Yeah. So I definitely have tried to get better about that, but it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. So that's another thing. Like, I genuinely do not like being asked on the date about another date, even if I'm having a good time, because I'm just like, in my head, I'll say yes. Like, I was going to say yes anyways, but, like, let me just have a breather.
Yeah, let me, like, decompress, think about it.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, I have reneged before.
Right.
Like, sometimes a guy will ask me and I'm put on the spot and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And then I have time to think about it. And then I message, I'm like, hey, I know I agreed to this, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. And
Right.
I had one guy, actually, who didn't ask me. And he, like, didn't text me and ask me on a third. Like, we had gone on 2 dates.
Yeah.
And he asked me on a second date, like, pretty soon after the third date.
Right.
And then, like, later in the week, or after a few days, I think we went out on a Thursday night. And we were texting, but he didn't say anything about a third date. And then, like, a few days later, he was like, so am I seeing you on Thursday? I think he might have texted me on Wednesday. And he's like, so am I seeing you tomorrow night?
You're
and
like, did you ever plan this?
I'm like...
With my knowledge?
I'm like, no. Like, I was going to end it with him anyways. And I was also very annoyed that he, like, was texting me and not, like...
Asking.
Like, if he would have asked me on a third date right after...
Yeah.
Like, if it had been a couple of days, like, oh, hey, I had a nice time. Do you want to go out again this week? Like, okay, maybe not on Thursday night, like, Friday morning, but, like... On Sunday, if he would have been like, hey, I'd love to see you again, like, do you have time this, like, what's your schedule like this week? But to, like, assume on a Wednesday that I'm free on Thursday, it's like...
It had never been discussed.
Yeah, and it's like... I hate the last minute.
Yeah.
I think it's very disrespectful of my time. As someone who's busy.
No, that's fair. Even, like, someone who might not have a crazy week, like, don't just assume and don't be like, oh, are you free tomorrow night? No, even if I'm not, I'm allowed to say, like, even if I'm not busy, I don't have to say yes to you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's okay if the guy's like, I really want to see you again.
Yeah.
I have a crazy week and tomorrow's my only free night. Is there any chance that it works for you?
Right.
That is okay to say.
Yeah.
And I've done that before. Like, I don't know. I think I had a call with a guy once. I think this was a guy I ended up dating for a while. Mm-hmm. And we had a phone call on a Sunday night. And he was like, I'd love to take you out. Are you, like... are you free any night this week? And I had, like, a lot of stuff going on. And I'm like, okay, so honestly, I wouldn't do this so last minute, but the only free night I have is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like, are you free on Tuesday?
But was it, like, the day before?
It was on Sunday night for Tuesday.
That's not so crazy. I think it's a little bit more annoying
Sometimes
when it's, like, the day before.
I have done the day before sometimes.
Right.
I've done it before.
Yeah.
But it's always that scenario. It's like, okay, you can, if you're not free, we'll find a different time.
Right.
But this is my only free night. By any chance, does that work? Yeah. I think that's just more...
Also, it's the way you phrase it.
Yeah, I think if you phrase it in that way, like, oh, are you free tomorrow? It's like, actually, I'm not. It's like if you preface with the whole, oh, I have, like, this, I'm really sorry, this week is just, like, really busy for me. Mm-hmm. This is my only night free. Does it, by any chance, does it work for you?
If you're not, taking them into consideration.
Yeah, it just, I like to be considered.
Yeah.
Whether or not I'm busy or not, like, yeah, sometimes I'll accept a date for the next day.
Right.
But it's like, are you taking into consideration and respecting the fact that I'm busy also? Mm-hmm, exactly. You're respecting my time. I had a guy cancel on me 4 days in a row. I told him off.
As you should. That's something.
I might have talked about this in a previous episode, but yeah, it was the week before I was leaving for the holidays, and he was also leaving. And we had been, like, talking. I, like, prompted everything in this. Right. I think I started the conversation on an app. I was the one who was like, oh, so are you gonna, like... He, like, wasn't being so responsive. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of getting bored of carrying this whole conversation. So...
Calling him out. I love it.
Yeah, so then he, I think, initiated having a date. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we make a plan for what day.
Okay.
And he was like... So the morning of... He messaged me and he's like, so something happened in my apartment. I might need to take care of it after work because I'm leaving tomorrow. He was like busy all week and he was leaving to go home the next day. And he's like, I really have to take care of it. I'm so sorry to cancel. But he didn't like
reason. But
he's like, I don't know if I have to do it. My roommate might take care of it. I'll let you know, like, later in the day.
Okay.
So finally he did. And he couldn't meet up, and I was like, okay.
Right.
I was a little annoyed because, like, he did take a while to, like, get back to me about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what, fine, like, we'll go. Or maybe he might have, like, oh, no, here's what happened. I told him the 2 days I was free during the week.
Right.
I think it was a Wednesday and a Thursday. I was like, I'm free Wednesday and Thursday. And he's like, okay, which day do you want to do? And, like, he, like, couldn't choose. I'm like, okay, let's do Wednesday.
Be decisive.
Like, I'm like, you're going to be indecisive. I'm going to pick a day. Yeah. So then he texts back. He's like, oh, so Wednesday works better for you? And I'm like, honestly, either of them still work. But I just had to pick. Like, someone had to pick, so I did it. He's like, something just came up. Like, one of my, like, good friends is in town. On Wednesday, can we do Thursday instead? And I was like, fine.
Yeah.
Thursday. And then he cancels on me.
Oh my God.
So Wednesday, Thursday, it maybe wasn't 2 days in a row, or 4 days in a row. So he canceled on me twice.
Right.
because I said Wednesday, and then he canceled Wednesday, moved it to Thursday, and then canceled Thursday.
Again.
And then he was leaving, and then I was leaving while he was gone, and I was home for like a month. And so I was like, if you want, we could have like a video call or something.
I always suggest that.
Like,
if, like, timing doesn't work out to meet in person.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I know, like, it's crazy. Like, would you consider doing like, even now, I feel like one of the few good things to come out of COVID was, like, the options of doing a video call.
Yeah.
Because I feel like beforehand, people would just be like, either, like, they would sometimes have a phone call or they would just go straight for the in-person date.
Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, let's do that. So we set a day. I was leaving that next week.
Right.
So I was busy.
Yeah.
Like, I was busy. So I'm like, okay, this is my one free night. Or maybe I had 2 free nights. So I told him one night, and then that morning he's like, something came up for today. Can we do tomorrow instead? Fine. I was like, okay, whatever. Then the next day, he's like, I'll let you know, like, what time, like, I'll be available. He's like, I have to do something, but I'll be home. Right. And then, like, we can have our call. And I'm like, cool. He's like, I'll let you know the timing, like, in the afternoon.
Okay.
And then at some point, I didn't hear from him. And I think we had so we had set a time. And then he was like, okay, he's like, I'll let you know. I think we set a time for, like, 7 o'clock.
Right.
And he's like, okay, I'll let you know. And I think I had something after that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll let you know by, like, 5 if I have to, like, postpone further or if I'm going to be home in time. I don't even remember.
That's cutting it
I don't
close.
even remember. And I'm like, okay. So then 5 o'clock comes and goes, and I don't hear from him. Finally, at, like, 5:45, I message him. Or maybe we were supposed to talk at 6.
Right.
Finally, at 5:45, I message him. I'm like, hey, you said you would let me know by 5. It's past 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the deal? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to be able to talk. Then I told him off.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so this is the 4th time you've canceled on me. Mm-hmm. It's a complete disrespect of my time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a busy person.
Yeah.
And, like, you're completely... I've set my time. I'm like, I'm done setting aside time for someone who doesn't respect my time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whenever you decide you can respect my time, you can let me know. And whatever, and then he never answered that message.
I mean, good for you for, like, I mean, obviously you just said, like, he never answered, so I'm assuming it didn't lead to anything in the end. Yeah. But, like, good for you for, like, being willing to be, like, once you get your act together, like, then come back to me. Because, like, at that point, I would have just probably told him off and be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, I'm not willing to give you another chance. Because at that point, 4 times, and it's a lot easier to have a phone call or a video call than it is to go in person.
I know. It must have been that I had something later that night, and I'm like, I need to be off by, like, 8.
Right, but, like, even so, like...
Yeah. Oh, I think it was a Monday night. I'm like, I'm watching The Bachelor at 8. Like,
which is valid.
Yeah, it's valid.
Good reason.
Yeah.
Very good reason.
But, yeah, I told him off, and I'm like,
yeah. No,
whatever.
That's fair. Boys,
I like telling boys
moral
off.
of the story, respect time, and also, be decisive. It's very simple. Like, if a girl tells you, like, I'm free these and these days, just choose one.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Just choose one. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Also, if you can be creative, that'd be nice. But, like, no pressure on that, because, like, I know it can be hard.
But basic respect. Just show basic respect.
Yeah. It's very simple. The bar is pretty low.
And even if you can't do that, be apologetic and be like, hey, like, even if he would have been like, hey, this isn't a great time for me.
With, like, the respect situation?
Like, let's reconnect whenever we're both back in New York. Like,
right.
I would have been cool with that too.
Yes. But I wonder if that kind of goes with the respect thing, like being apologetic. Because, like, I don't know, like, if they're not respectful, they might not be so apologetic. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I think you gotta show some basic human respect.
1,000%. Agreed. Yeah. Very much agreed.
Yeah.
I think those are the only, like, stories I had come to mind. There's probably a couple others, but, like, they're less entertaining. Although, actually, there was one where the guy basically and I, like, hated each other by the end of the phone call, and we pretty much gave each other feedback about why the other one's a terrible person.
Wow.
I think...
Why was he a terrible person?
So, this was, like... So I was home from March 2020 until, like, May 2021 back in Jersey before I came back to New York. And this had to have been, like, I want to say, like March of 2021. So, like, a couple months before I came back to New York. And like I said earlier, because I was at home, I like was a little more hesitant to go out on dates in person because I didn't want to bring anything back to my parents. And it was cold out, so I didn't want to like force someone to walk around in the cold. And we had matched, I think, on the matchmaking site, and he pretty much said to me, he's like, well, if you're not willing to go out in person, you shouldn't be dating right now. And I'm like, I explicitly told you earlier in the call that like in the summer I'll be a lot more comfortable because it's easier to be outside. And he just like was not respecting my thought process with COVID, which like I try to be respectful of everyone's decisions. Like you do what you think is best for you, and that's fine. But like you have to do the same for me. And obviously by the end of the call, he was like, I think we can both agree that this is not going to work. I was like, you're 100% right. And then he was about to say something, and he was like, actually, never mind. And I straight up called him out. I was like, no, you can't do that. You now have to tell me what you were going to say, because you can't say, oh, actually, never mind. Like, just tell me straight up. He's like, well, I was basically just going to say, like, you really shouldn't be dating right now if you're not willing to meet up in person. And I said to him back, I was like, okay, well, sure, noted. Thank you for saying that. But I'm also going to tell you, don't tell people what to do. He's like, oh, it wasn't coming off. Like, I didn't mean it like that. I was like, well, that's how it came off. Like, I don't appreciate being told what to do. Like, don't tell me how, like, if I should be dating or not right now. And he, like, went into this whole thing. He's like, well, I wasn't going out in the beginning because my mom is immunocompromised. Like, but I still got COVID. I was like, do you want a pat on the back for that? Like, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
He was just, like, not respectful of my wishes. And I'm like, sir, don't tell people what to do. That's my feedback for you. He's like, I wasn't telling you what to do. I was like, but you were.
Yeah.
But you were. I was like, had you given it a couple months? Like, yes, I understand if you don't want to wait. That's fine. I will respect your wishes if you respect mine. But also, like, it was kind of easy. Like, it was the beginning stages. Like, we could have had, like, a couple of phone calls, a couple times a month, like, texted back and forth. And by the time, April came around, it would have been a little bit nicer out, and I would have met you in person.
Yeah, like if
give
you
it
were
a month,
serious about it,
yeah.
like...
Give it a month or a month and a half.
I know a lot of
sometimes
people
annoying.
who, like, virtual dated, and then, like... One of my good friends met her husband at, like, a Zoom event over COVID.
There you go.
They dated virtually for a few months.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't, like, I got it. Like, people were ready to move out of the mindset in 2021. Yeah. I get it. I was not quite there because, like I said, I was with my parents. But, like, it wasn't like it was, like, December time, November time, where, like, we had months to go before the weather was nice.
Yeah.
We had, like, maybe a month to a month and a half.
I did that to a guy. I was, like, virtually dating him. I wasn't feeling it so much. Like, whatever. We only had 3 video calls, I think. Okay. We were getting to know each other, and he's like... I think he was living in Brooklyn or Queens.
Right.
And I was living in my old neighborhood, like in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could come if you want. My roommates were also very, very, very strict.
Right. But that's
COVID.
The thing of why I didn't come back, because I didn't want to do that to my roommates, so I stayed home with my parents. I was doing what I had to do to, like, respect everyone's wishes.
Yeah, so I couldn't have anyone in the apartment.
Yeah.
The area I lived in didn't have much to do.
Okay.
Also, like, this was December 2020.
Okay, so, like, really, like,
yeah,
still early stages.
This was December 2020, and there was nowhere, and, like, places weren't really open.
Yeah.
I did, like, go out. No, I think, like, starting November 2020, things closed again. Because I remember I dated someone in November 2020, and, like, we couldn't really go anywhere. Yeah, and places were closed, and he's like, I could come see you.
Right.
Like, in your neighborhood, and we could do something. But also, it got dark so early.
Yeah.
And I'm like... And it wasn't that I didn't want to go out. I think also, like, I didn't know if I was feeling it. We ended it after 3, but I was like, what's the point?
Right.
Like, honestly, like, what's the point of you coming here? Like, so what? We could go walk in the park in the dark, like, in 0-degree weather? Like,
that's exactly what I had tried to tell this guy. I was like, look, I don't want to force someone to walk around a park in New York when it's really cold outside. Because, like, I don't want to, and I want to do that to somebody else. So, like, I'm trying to be conscious of both of our wishes.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was going to be uncomfortable to try and eat something outside.
Yeah, it was too cold.
Yeah. So I was like, if you were actually, like, someone I was actually interested in, and we, video chatted back and forth for a bit, and, like,
then
worked
you
through
would.
it, and then as the weather started to get warmer, like, I didn't need to do it in 20-degree weather.
Yeah.
And we were close enough to the warm weather that I was like, I'm not being completely, like, unreasonable.
Yeah.
But apparently I was.
I think COVID was just a weird time where, like, everyone had... I don't know. I think if you were on the same page as someone with COVID,
Yeah.
you could work through it. Like, again, I dated someone seriously during the Omicron surge.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, we did have a lot of virtual dates at the very beginning. Like,
Right.
someone had an exposure. Like,
You gotta make
he
do.
wasn't feeling good. He thought he might have COVID. Like,
Right.
you just do what you have to do. And, like, you know what? After that period of, like, virtually dating, it was actually kind of nice because, like, then by the time, because we went on one date, then we had like 3 virtual dates.
Right.
And by the time we went on our second date, I'm like, is this our 5th date or our second date? Like, I don't know. And it also, like, I don't know. You really get to know someone when all you can do is talk.
Yeah. That's also kind of the nice thing. I'm like, you're saving money.
You're saving money. And it's also like before, like whatever people do in terms of like touching, not touching.
Right.
In the religious spectrum, like it is kind of nice to get to know someone like that before you even like are able to introduce any physical elements into a relationship.
No, that, yeah.
But
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Boys are
guys are
interesting.
yeah. Yeah.
It's the nicest way to put it, honestly. They're interesting.
They're just kind of the worst.
I mean, I didn't want to say it, but now that you're saying
It's
it,
okay.
I agree.
Guys, please prove us wrong that you're not the
Yes.
worst.
The bar is
The bar is pretty low.
It's kind of low, not gonna lie.
The bar is very low.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Guys don't like me, so it's okay.
I mean, girls, same. I get all the weirdos.
Same. Guys just don't like me. I was talking about this at my meals, and like everyone's like, "What are you saying?" And I'm like, "No, it's just true." Like,
What does that even mean, though? Like, what?
I don't know. One of the girls in my meal was talking about going to a singles event, and I'm like,
It's my worst nightmare.
I'm just like, I don't understand the point of going to a singles event because I go to these events and guys don't like me. Like, none of the guys want to talk to me. And I'm like, even if I start...
that is because, and sorry to interrupt you, for me, I just, like, come off as a shy person when you first meet me, and, like, you can ask anyone I'm good friends with, like, when they first meet me, they're like, you're very quiet and shy, but as soon as we get to know you, you're, like, a crazy person and, like, won't shut up.
So, I think guys either don't like the way that I look, or they see me being a crazy person, and they're like, wow, that girl's crazy. Which, like, both things are very much me, and, like, things that I'm not going to change.
Right, and you shouldn't have to change
So,
that.
it's like, okay, that's fine. Like, you don't like, this is who I am, and you don't like me, but, like, that's fine because, like, I'm still going to be me.
As you should be.
So, but I'm
You
just,
shouldn't
like,
change for somebody else.
I'm just, like, what's the point of going to these things?
It's also hard because, like, I'm not going to go by myself and tell me if you're the same way. Like, you're much more outgoing than I am, but, like, I don't want to go by myself because then it's just, like, weird. But then, like, you end up going with your friends, so you're not going to talk to anybody you don't know.
Yeah, so when I've gone with my I haven't gone to a singles event in a long time. When I go with my friends, we try to, like, at a certain point, we're like, okay, let's break off into, like, 2s even, and, like, go find someone to talk to.
That's a smart
Or
plan,
it's like,
but does it
okay,
work?
our goal is to, like, talk to, like, 3 guys. Like, we'll set goals. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I did go to a singles event once, and I'm like, okay, you know what? And my friend group were like, okay, let's each, like, try to at least go talk to one guy.
Yeah.
So I talked to this guy, and we were having a really nice conversation. Then he just, like, abruptly ended it. And I'm like, okay.
Rude.
We were talking for, like, probably, like, 20 minutes, a half an hour.
Yeah.
And then he just, like, abruptly ended it. And I'm like, okay.
What? Be graceful, guys. Like, just
Like,
be
that's
like,
that's fine.
The respect
Like,
thing again.
but also, like, if you're not interested, like, you are at a singles event. So if you
Right.
aren't interested, then, like, don't stand and talk for that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it also gives the wrong message. And we were, like, I don't know. There was a little bit of a vibe.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not heartbroken by it. Like, it's fine. I did find out, like, in the conversation, he was, like, a little younger than me. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, whatever. But I'm just like, okay, so don't talk to me for that long. Like, just be
yeah.
like, oh, my friend's over there. Like, which he did after, like, a half an hour.
Right.
But, like, okay, so do that after 10 minutes.
Yeah, not after a significant amount of time.
Like, if you're not interested, you're not interested. Like, be a decent human about it, but,
Yeah.
like, don't, like, lead a girl on.
No, for sure. And it's interesting you mentioned the age thing, because one of my matchmakers on the website, they've changed a couple times just because, like, sometimes the matchmaker becomes inactive and whatever the scenario was. So one of mine, I guess, became inactive, so they gave me a new person in their place. And this matchmaker, I'm sure she means well, and I've been on this website coming up, I think, on 3 years, I think, however long it is. So I've cycled through quite a few guys on the website, and haven't spoken to her on the phone or anything. And she basically sent me a message that I missed on the website, and then she messaged me on WhatsApp, and she was like, oh, like, she, like, wrote out this whole long message, and she's like, I know what you're looking for, but, like, you really need to, like, get rid of some of your restrictions that you have, blah, blah, blah. And she, like, sent me, like, I'm 27. I'm willing to, my age range is, like, 5 years older than me, and I think about a year or two younger than me. So it's a nice age range. And she was, like, trying to get me to remove some of my age range, and she would send me someone who was 35. And for me personally, that's not what I'm looking for. And if that's what you're looking for, who am I to judge?
I got sent a 38-year-old.
Yeah.
I think I have my age at, like, 34, 35
right.
limit. I got sent a 38-year-old.
Yeah. And for me, that's just a hard thing. I have older siblings, and my oldest siblings are 35. I don't have a preference for someone to be dating someone who's 8 years older than me. But she sent me a couple people who were 35, and I'm like, that's not a restriction I'm willing to like, it's not like my age range was 1 year older than me and that was it.
Yeah.
I feel like I had, like, a 6 to 7 age range from, like, younger to older than me, which I feel like is pretty good. Mm-hmm. But, like, I kind of was, like, frustrated by that. And I was like, I don't need to be adjusting on that. And, like, there's a couple other things I think and I'm blanking on what it was, but I'm like, lady, like, I get, like, you're trying to help me, but, like, you gotta remember each person's preferences might be slightly different.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard.
I, like, personally, like, it was an accident, but I let the match expire with a 38-year-old. Because I was just, like, going back and forth on a couple of things. This is when I was just, like, overwhelmed with my life, and I, like, wasn't really looking to go out with someone, but that's when I got the match. And I'm like, okay, but, like, he's 38, never married, like, maybe he was working on his career, and, like, I could be his, like, princess that he, like, treats really well, but I'm like, but most likely not. But, like, 38, like, 9 years older than me.
That's my thought process also.
And, like, I just turned 29. Like, 9 years older is a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think older is always more mature. Like, I do want a more mature guy. Like, but, like, I think I could get a mature guy who's, like, 30.
Yeah.
Or, like, 31. Or 32.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I need to go up to 38. Like, that's, like...
I feel like we're still too young to be at that point.
Yeah, I think I'm still too young to be dating guys who are 9 years older than me.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, I don't know. But that's just, like, listen, maybe, like, the guy who's out there for me is 9 years older than me. And, like, that's why I, like, went back and forth. And eventually I just let the match expire by accident.
Right.
Like, I meant to extend it longer and, like, see, like... Because I was
really
I was thinking about it because I'm like, you know what? Why not give him a chance?
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he's 60 because some of these guys look like they're 60.
They really do.
And I'm like, maybe I should just give it a chance. Like, what's the harm in, like, having a phone call?
Yeah.
But I accidentally let the match... I just had too much going on in that one day.
Right.
And like,
didn't think
the
about
match... I accidentally let the match expire because I was too busy. I was thinking about it still.
Right.
But I don't know.
No, I hear it.
I don't know. We'll see. And then I'm like, you know what? This was an accident. I didn't mean to let it expire. If this is my person, God will bring him back into my life. And, like...
Touché.
It's fine. But yeah. Okay, so Jessie.
Yes.
Are there any more stories you want to share before we wrap up the episode?
At the moment, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we've covered all my crazy ones.
Okay. So I always ask my guests to give one piece of dating advice.
One piece of dating advice. Okay.
Can you give my listeners one piece of dating advice?
I feel like I've got...
aside from what we've already covered in the episode.
Yeah. If you stress too much before it happens, you're putting yourself, like, through the situation twice. So, like, don't stress. Like, that could really be for, like, dating, social life, for anything. Like,
I stress about everything.
Yeah,
so
yeah. If you're stressing about something before it happens, you're pretty much putting yourself through it twice. So, and you know, like you said, Rachel, like, I also, like, stress. Like, I need to take my own advice. Like, I've been doing pretty good with it, but, like, don't, like, try not to stress too much about it. Like, let what happens, and, like, just try to be your best self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I should work on that. Okay. And then my last part is, Jessie, what is your Real Housewives tagline?
Real Housewives tagline. I mean, I think I'm funny. Other people might not, and I feel like you're the same way. But as long as you can make yourself laugh, that's all that really matters. I'm like, I can make myself laugh, so like,
Yeah.
I think I'm all set.
Yeah. I make myself laugh all the time.
Yeah.
I think I'm hilarious. I'm my own biggest fan.
Agreed.
If you're not going to be your own biggest fan, who is going to be it?
Exactly. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This has been a true pleasure.
Yeah, this has been fun. And everyone, Jessie's like sitting in my like messy room. Like, I have a week of fun employment. I told her like when she walked in, I'm like, one of my projects of my week of fun employment is like cleaning my room so I can
It's a good project.
be a
it's
person.
not that messy. You're fine.
I just have a lot of stuff in a little space.
It's a neat chaos.
Yeah.
I like it.
I try not to have dirty stuff.
That's the key thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but yeah, this is so fun. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
And Sticky Situation Nation, we hope you enjoyed listening, and you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.